I joined Sepultura in April of '87. We did work that until then was unprecedented. It was a milestone in Brazilian heavy metal history.
In world heavy metal history.
My wife was diagnosed with cancer. Extremely difficult moments, right? Watching the physical decline, you know? The consequences of chemotherapy, an ICU stay. Then I started to question, you know? As a Brazilian citizen, I realized I was really unprepared for a moment like this, man.
This story changed the way you see life.
No doubt. I began to wonder why euthanasia isn't discussed in this country. Nobody talks about death. In the family, nobody wants to talk about the estate. Nobody wants to talk about coffins. How do you want to die? So man, why not question it? Why not talk about it?
What's the fear? Fear of talking about death and fear of allowing euthanasia.
Who is going to measure what life means for someone else? What is euthanasia?
My guest is one of the greatest guitarists in the world. He was born in the 1970s in São Bernardo do Campo, where the most famous metal around was from the cars of the automobile industry in the so-called ABC region of São Paulo. But instead of working at Mercedes or Volkswagen like his parents did, my guest went on to play in Sepultura. By joining the band created by brothers Max and Igor Cavalera, my guest brought essential innovations. And it was with him that Sepultura gained worldwide recognition, playing in more than 80 countries and becoming one of the greatest heavy metal bands in history. Life brought him a lot of success, but also unexpected events. Max and Igor left Sepultura, and my guest took on the responsibility of carrying forward the most famous Brazilian band in the world throughout history. And more recently, when a relentless illness took the life of his wife Patricia, my guest changed his way of living and began to advocate for the right to die. Even with all that, he remains very much alive, in great shape, and still performing on stages in Brazil, Iceland, and wherever else you can imagine. Andreas, KISSER, you may come in.
What am I doing? I'm playing the guitar that I found over there.
It's in really bad shape. Can you play it?
It's terrible, but it was fine. Is it bad?
I'll ask them to bring it then.
It's bad, but it's good.
But you can get something out of it, can't you?
You can have fun with it for sure. Yeah, us. So what's up? When you find a guitar at someone's house, it's usually out of tune, right?
Man, but this is terrible. Forgotten. It's just that I used to play, I wanted to play
Last century.
last century. And I told you, my dream was to be a musician. And I'm the failed musician. I wasn't a good musician, so I became a journalist.
Well, it's all right. Journalism is an art too.
Have you ever considered something else?
Man, well, I started with music. Music was very common in my house, you know? My father listened to a lot of sertanejo, especially Sergio Reis and Tonico and Tinoco. My mother had a very eclectic record collection from the Beatles to Clara Nunes and those soap opera theme compilations, you know? My mother played a little accordion and my grandmother played guitar. She could play about 3 or 4 chords, some folk songs from Slovenia, Austria, Germany, from the region she came from, you know, from Slovenia. And it was with her guitar that I started playing, you know? Yeah, there wasn't anyone professional in music in my band, in my family, and I started to play guitar because I wanted to play Stairway to Heaven. For me, that was my big goal.
And did you learn to play it quickly?
No, well, I started playing by learning chords, you know, Brazilian popular music. Was it around this time here? Look, that's it, yeah. I still keep my grandmother's guitar with great affection.
How old were you?
Man, I don't know, 13, 12, 13, I don't know, 14.
But did you already have an idea that you were going to become a musician?
I liked it, but I didn't really know yet and still considered becoming a soccer player.
You're wearing a club jersey, right?
No, this one is Formula One. It's Formula One, yeah.
You wanted to play soccer and you play well?
I've always liked playing as a goalkeeper, as a goalie. My biggest idols in soccer were goalkeepers from São Paulo Futebol Clube, because I'm a huge fan of the tricolor and Rogério Sen. I played futsal, yeah, Rogério, yes, Sene, I played futsal. It was on Rua Ramos, where I grew up, São Bernardo do Campo, at a club called Meninos Futebol Clube. I used to live there on 3 de Dezembro, and the club is still there today. And I played a lot of futsal back then when the ball looked like a cannonball, a smaller ball like this, really heavy.
I was a goalkeeper too.
Really? Futsal. So we suffered a lot, because man, those guys had some powerful shots, right? And after they standardized it with a bigger ball, it was a bit more humane.
Didn't a guy born in the ABC region in the 70s get recruited to work in the auto industry?
My father worked at Mercedes, my father worked at Mercedes, and my mother started at Volkswagen. They met at Mercedes and got married there in the ABC region. And it was exactly this industrial movement, in the ABC region of Sao Paulo that helped my family prosper. So I lived there on Ramos Street, and my father worked at Mercedes Benz for more than 40 years.
Is this Ramos Street?
It's a neighborhood in São Bernardo, Yeah, it's one of the biggest neighborhoods in São Bernardo over there.
Were you close to Lula at that time? Did you live near Lula? Does that have anything to do with it?
Yes, I studied at San Jose School, right? Yeah, in the 1970s.
Was that when Lula was at the Union? Yes.
When it started in 78, there were those rallies, right? At the main church there in São Bernardo. I was studying at San Jose School on Dota Fleca. There, actually, I remember tear gas bombs falling at the school, feeling that, having police there guarding the entrance. It was during those moments, yeah, those rougher moments during the strike, the illegality, the police brutality, and everything. So I saw all of that up close,
Did that affect you in any way? Did it move you?
without a doubt. Did it leave a mark? No doubt. Along with that came later the Diretas Ja movement, Rock in Rio in 85, right?
At Rock in Rio, you were young. You were still young.
Right? Yeah, in 85, I was what? I was born in 68. So in 78, I was about 15, 16 years old. So much so that when I went to Rio de Janeiro, I had to go to the court with my mom so she could give me permission to travel alone by bus.
What did you want to see at Rock in Rio?
Ozzy Osbourne, who has always been my biggest idol, obviously. Iron Maiden, AC/DC, right? A big surprise was Whitesnake with, John Sykes on guitar at Rock in Rio 85 because Whitesnake. They came in place of Def Leppard, right? Def Leppard canceled at the last minute, and Whitesnake had a kind of country lineup, some kind of country guitarists. So people kind of turned up their noses at the time. But that was the beginning of a new phase for Whitesnake where they became modernized. Yeah, and they released the album in 1987, right after Rock in Rio, with John Sykes, Cozy Powell on drums, a drummer, a more visceral version of Whitesnake.
So at Rock in Rio, you were just a bit older than now?
Yeah, a little older. That's when funny enough, it was right at this table in the kitchen at my house in Santo André. This here is already in the neighborhood. Santo André changed a lot. In 1980, I moved to Santo André. This was in the Jardim neighborhood. Santo André. It was right at this table in this place that I told my family I was going to leave my Santo André. And from here, I announced it just like that. Wow.
And then it stayed like that.
And then it grew, I've got this heavy metal thing, right?
Check out this cool one with long hair. So this is how it ended up, but that's from much later, right?
This one is much later. This one is more recent. It used to be even longer than this, but since then, I never cut my hair again. You didn't? I let my hair grow and never cut it again.
You cut it at this length?
Of course, at this length, sure, obviously. I keep it to make it healthier. You have to trim the ends and comb it once in a while. It's a lot of work. Wash it sometimes. Not really. No, I take care of it. You let it down. Now, will it stay? Yes, it's fine.
Can I see?
Do you want to let it down? It's not washed, but it's fine.
Man, I had a friend who was your fan when I played drums. The guy, he listened to you and played like you, wanted to play like you, and he also grew his hair long at that time. So cool. That influenced a lot of people, right?
Yeah, I had a friend at Singular School where I also studied in high school there in Santo André, and his name was Vinicius Vinny. He was the first guy I saw up close who had long hair. He was a big fan of Led Zeppelin, and that inspired me, Besides the bands I was already listening to and everything, from that point on, I started letting my hair grow out. Rock in Rio in 83, KISS came, right? That was my first big concert at Morumbi. Yeah, seeing that up close, the fireworks, feeling all that. It was my favorite band at the time. Then came Rock in Rio, and then the whole democratic opening in Brazil, Brazilian rock, which exploded.
Did you like it? Like Legião, Paralamas? Did you enjoy it?
No, not that much. Not at that time. And you?
You like those international bands more?
Me? Titans was the first band with Cabeza de Dinosaurio that opened my mind like that to a world beyond metal.
The song Cabeza de Dinosaurio itself already had a heavier vibe.
Right? Yeah, Policia is a cover Sepultura recorded that we still play today. It's one of our most well known because of that album's influence. We actually recorded Beneath the Remains at Nas Nuvens Studio in Rio de Janeiro because of Cabeza de Dinosaurio, which was recorded there with Limina, right? We also recorded Beneath the Remains in that room.
Limina recorded everyone, even Paralamas.
And everything, including both of them.
How did you end up in that? It wasn't like that. A guy coming from the ABC region of Sao Paulo, a Brazilian guy your age, people expected him to do Brazilian rock. How did you get into international rock? No, not rock, metal.
I don't know if it was that obvious to make Brazilian rock, man. I don't think so. Yeah, we can see from the history of Brazilian music that a lot of artists had to have English pseudonyms, right? Ronnie Fong, Fabio Jr. had an English name, and all of them, right? Sullivan and Masadas, maybe that's not even their real names, but anyway. They would create a persona, right, to make a national artist sound like a foreign artist because there really wasn't a national identity, right? Bossa Nova came along, then Tropicalia, yeah, and Brazil even held a protest against the electric guitar in '67 with Elis Regina and all those people.
Caetano and Gil went there to defend it.
Right? Exactly, right? So the thing about the Beatles' music, especially, is that it revolutionized music worldwide, including Brazilian music.
The Beatles influenced you too, right? Absolutely.
My mother had a Beatles record there, along with that whole collection I mentioned, which was Help, right, by the Beatles. And I listened to that record a lot during my childhood, you know, I listened to it every day. Along with Clara Nunes and Beth Carvalho, I enjoyed music. For me, there wasn't much difference between rock and samba. I liked Sergio Reyes because my father always listened to him. I also listened to Tonico and Tinoco and other Sertanejo classics. Roberto Carlos because it took me an hour to get from home to school, right? The bus I took and everything, the kids and so on until we got there. It happened during the Roberto Carlos special on Radio America.
Did you like Roberto Carlos?
I used to listen to him. Do you still like him? Every day. I definitely do. I respect the King's career. From the Jovem Guarda days on, everything he did with Erasmo Carlos, the romantic songs, his most iconic ones, right? I had the privilege of making music with Roberto Carlos together with his son, who was a drummer with Dudu. It was a tribute to Roberto Carlos's heavier music with more rock-style reinterpretations, right?
Not with Roberto, but with Roberto's son.
With his son, with Dudu. And at the release of this DVD where it was filmed, Roberto Carlos was there and we performed a song together there. So I had the privilege of making music with the king.
Now you're playing with your son?
Yeah, we've been making music together for a long time, right?
So is it more MPB? Is there rock? What is it? What do you have?
Yes, there's a mix of styles, but we mainly honor heavy metal with Kiss and Kisser Clan. But we've already played MPB, we've played choro, we've played jazz, blues.
And is it virtuosic too?
Sensational. Did he get everything wrong? Much more than I did. He's a guy who really likes to study theory, to go deep, to be able to explain everything. I was never very theoretical, you know. Even though I play classical guitar, can read sheet music, and obviously have some understanding of harmony and scales, I was never really into that theoretical side. I've always been more about practice, you know, listening, playing along, learning other styles, not being afraid to play sertanejo or a pop song.
Do you play sertanejo on guitar?
I do.
For sure. And do you like it?
I do.
For example, what songs do you like to play?
Viola Caipira, Menino da Porteira, for example, is a classic that I've always played. Like, you know, Chico Mineiro, songs from the more traditional side of sertanejo.
Not the ones from now?
I don't really know the ones from now. When things get too pop, too romantic, I'm not really into it, you know? I think it's more of a street thing like Choriño itself, right?
It comes from somewhere between being punk. Do you think there's an issue between being original and being commercial?
Everything is commercial.
Everything is, of course. Is Sepultura commercial? Of course.
I earn my living with Sepultura. It's my job.
No, it's one thing to make money with Sepultura. It's another thing to make music thinking about the money it's going to give you.
No, it's all part of the same package. You'll face commercial consequences either way, you know? Now, if you do something thinking about the commercial side, thinking about the end result, for me, that's not my area anymore.
That's not art.
That's not art, you know?
That's not Sepultura.
Yeah, but that's not just in music, it's everywhere. It's in poetry, it's in painting.
Just to be sure, I'm sure you're not on that other side. You're on the side of no.
But for example, when you make a song, the song has to be 4 minutes at most. It has to have two choruses and a short solo. You're already thinking commercially. Since you're considering radio, you're aware people have less patience for long songs. Nowadays, it's just 5 seconds or so. Many artists feel this way.
Do you have or impose this limitation on yourself? No.
But Sepultura has a set of rules that we break, but we work within this set of rules. You know, we make fast music, we make groovy music. Suddenly it's an acoustic song, but we're always paying attention to this kind of thing.
To the audience's reaction to what will or won't work?
No, no, not the audience's reaction. No, I mean, if one song is 5 minutes, this one can be eight, this one can be three.
In my view, that doesn't invalidate art in any way. We have film movements like Dogma, for example. Those guys created a bunch of rules and follow those rules. Yes, no doubt.
With those for sure.
The 12-note scale itself is a rule.
Yes, exactly.
You play between them.
A movie could be an hour and a half or 3 hours anyway,
That doesn't stop being art because of that.
but you work within certain rules. And they can even be not so clear and objective, but more subjective within the style, right? Because you get influenced by how Black Sabbath put together an album, how Metallica creates an album. That intrinsically, being a heavy metal fan and being influenced by that will influence how we put together an album, how we decide what's the first song. The first song has to hit hard, right? I don't know what, if there's no solo, that's okay.
Sure, even better if there's no solo.
Yeah, no, better not. It depends. Okay, there's no better or worse. It depends commercially. No, not that. We don't have that.
The solo kind of disappeared from a lot of songs, right? Back in the day,
Every song had it. That was always my criticism of Brazilian rock. Right after that Rock in Rio, I mentioned this thing about making music just to play on the radio. They took out the guitar solo, added more saxophone solos, for example, right? Or they took out the distortion, or the song had to be 3 minutes long at most, and so on. Okay, certain limits make you more creative, like Chico Buarque, for example, Gilberto Gil, Caetano Veloso.
when you had
Limited by the dictatorship, they became more creative, right? To get around that stupidity, right? The censorship and so on, etc. etc. Né? Então, so each style, let's say, has its own certain limit, and that's exactly why it gets broken. That's exactly why Sepultura can go there and do something with an orchestra, can do something with country music or whatever the style is, because we're always going to be Sepultura.
right? Was it on Roots when you broke the style the most?
Yeah, I think so at that time, yes, but it was something so for us, right? Within the band, it was so obvious to follow.
It was obvious.
For us, it was, man. For us, we wanted to emphasize this Brazilian identity in our music, and it didn't start with Roots, right? We started back in '89 releasing Beneath Your Remains, which was recorded there because of Titas in Rio de Janeiro. Doing our first international tour, starting to see Brazil from the outside, like an astronaut sees planet Earth from the outside, you change how you see home, right? You change your point of view, right? You start to see Brazil with different eyes. We used to be prejudiced, dismissing Brazilian music as trash just because it wasn't in English, lacked distortion, or didn't have guitar. Whatever the reason, we realized that, man, Brazil is a unique country. Only there do you find this kind of thing, this kind of mix. And we started to notice that on a rise, we already added a bit more of Brazilian flavor, like the introduction of the song Out of State, which opens side B, right? Back then, there was still vinyl, you know? Side B, where there was a bit more Latin percussion, we were already wanting to add those things to what KUZD, we were already playing around with that. The music became groovier, less fast, with more percussion, and on Roots, it just exploded, right? Working with Carlinhos Brown, making a song with the Chavantes tribe, and making songs like Roots, like Attitude, like Endangered Species and all that, right? Doing jams and everything, and really letting creativity flow without thinking about anything. Roots is the least commercial album if you go by the rules and weigh it, and it's the band's best-selling album.
Is it Sepultura's Sgt. Pepper's?
Without a doubt. It is.
When I stopped to think about it before we met, I think there's a similarity here with Sgt. Pepper's.
There is, man, both inside the studio and outside the studio, right? The Beatles were also going through things with management, not touring anymore, Yoko Ono and all that, right? Conflicts and so on. And Sepultura too, at the peak of our creativity when outside problems didn't come into the studio. And that's exactly why Roots is a musical and artistic success, right? Outside, the band was destroyed. It was falling apart. In fact, we did a year of touring for Roots, and then Max left because we fired our manager. At the end of the contract,
His wife,
that's right.
Gloria, was your Yoko Ono.
I think it's so cliche, right, to call it that. Yeah, no, because Yoko Ono was always very creative, right? She in a way she gave John Lennon an unconventional edge, right? Yoko Ono always had a very, very different, very unique point of view about art, right? And Gloria was never an artist, right? Gloria always saw things in a kind of bureaucratic way, right?
It caught people's attention at the time that Igor was with you? Yes.
We were together for 10 years.
Right? What happened there that made you and Igor decide to take a stand?
It's family, women, the situation at the time. Into, I think Igor could answer that better, right? Because he, had that break, but mostly because of work. Yeah, mixing family and work isn't easy, man. You see the story of Adidas and Puma, of Zildjian and Peste.
Zildjian didn't know.
Zildjian, yeah, they're brothers and all that. That's just how it goes, dealing with money and outsiders' expectations. We start out as teenagers, full of dreams, and then we start dating, get married, have kids. Each one has an idea of what the band should be, what success is, what needs to be done, what doesn't need to be done. And man, if there's no unity or clear communication, which we didn't have, things fall apart. Things fall apart when everyone pulls different ways.
You felt left out? You felt like Max was being favored there?
Yeah, a situation was created where we were doing well financially, but we were really badly organized, right? In terms of how we were going to go on tour, how we were going to, anyway, how we were going to put that money into touring, right? There was no communication. There wasn't a clear idea of how things were going to happen. And creatively, that really limits a lot of things, right? When we create a show, and from the moment you take that show on the road, the show will grow. We need to change things. We need to improve. Maybe things we think will work don't work, so we take them out, you know? There has to be communication. There has to be a process. It's always a process of growth. Nothing is definitive. Something that happens in January 2025 when a tour starts will be totally different from January 2026, even if it's the same tour, you know? So things change, things grow, we adapt. And that's exactly why the band evolves, or we as musicians evolve, because we play in all kinds of situations. To get to the point of having another chance to make a new album, to bring new ideas, new experiences, that's why touring is magical. The music is on stage. The music isn't in the studio. The music isn't in the music video. The music isn't on streaming platforms. The music is on stage, man. That's where we really feel that exchange of energy live. It's like watching a play too, right? You're there live. You're there in person, right? It's very different.
And do you still feel that energy?
Totally. That's infinite, inexhaustible.
I wanted to go back to something you said earlier that really impacted me. You said we started to see Brazil from the outside. You, in a way, you became a citizen of the world at that moment. When you left, you were more famous outside Brazil than in Brazil. Yes, you all were. Yes. What did you learn about Brazil that you didn't know before?
I started to respect Brazil more, to see not only the virtues, but also the flaws as positive things.
You said you didn't admire certain music before, but now you do. What changed? What new aspects caught your attention?
Even though I always listened to Sertanejo, Clara Nunes, and all that kind of stuff, the thing about Brazilian rock, for me, at one point when I started listening to heavier stuff with distortion, for me, it was all about the guitar distortion, man.
Was that what interested you? For me,
That was what interested me. It was the guitar distortion. In fact, my first purchase was a little DS1 pedal, that orange one from Boss, which changed my life, man. That changed my life. The first time I plugged in that pedal and played with that DS pedal, man, DS1,
DS1,
distortion one, right?
which is like there was the overdrive and there was this other one. Yeah.
This one, even today, it's a classic, right? That little orange one from Boss and all. Man, when I bought that pedal, dude, it changed my life because it's an indescribable feeling. That's why I'm still here today,
Because of the pedal?
because the pedal worked. But then
The pedal worked, you put down the guitar.
picked up the electric guitar. No, I never put down the acoustic guitar. Never did. To this day, I study guitar. I take guitar lessons. Classical guitar. So I'm learning more about how to use the 7-string guitar, right? To play some coro music. Coro 2, coro 2.
Going back to Pixinguinha back then, yeah.
Villa Lobos, right? Garoto. There are some amazing people who write for Brazilian guitar, right? The Brazilian guitar is rich.
I played the Baquianas in a show.
I play the choro, right? The choro number that's by Villa, which was written for solo guitar. The preludes, the 12 guitar studies, which were dedicated to Andres Segovia. Damn.
Do you play any of Aranjuez?
No, that one needs to be prepared.
It's good to go.
No? Some parts are good to go, that part, right? The second movement, which is the most well known, maybe. It's a slower movement, right? But just because it's slow doesn't mean it's simpler, right? It's not easier. Everything has its own difficulty. The classical guitar, it's a magical, spectacular world. I started with guitar before the electric guitar, right? And even though I started playing guitar and dedicated myself professionally, right, to the guitar, Sepultura, I never gave up the acoustic guitar, man. I always played acoustic guitar. Actually, every Sepultura album features some acoustic guitar.
Do you think that your appreciation for studying and for the acoustic guitar explains a bit of your success as a guitarist? Yes.
Man, I hope so. Because I naturally really enjoy doing this, you know? I think studying is the best thing for a human being, for the brain, for the challenge, you know? For you to see that the goal isn't to know everything, right? Even because information it's digested very differently from person to person, right? This thing of having a class in a room with 50 people for me is absurd. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. I've never had a music class like that inside a classroom in a big school. Music class is face to face, right? You have a connection with the teacher, you have the challenge, you have that eye contact, right? That observation. And everyone has their own pace, everyone has their own speed, everyone has their own expression, right? And studying is always good, I think, getting out of your comfort zone, right?
How many hours a day do you actually study guitar?
Man, if you let me, I'll spend the whole day studying.
I share everything.
Earlier today, I was studying before coming here. My son and I are preparing a Villa Lobos show. We're going to perform Villa Lobos' music with heavy electric guitar, with piano, with acoustic guitar, string quartet, percussion. Amazing. Amazing. Man, it's a spectacular project. And man, did Johan do several? So when is this show? It's going to be on November 6th now at Teatro Bradesco in Sao Paulo.
It's the first one, the premiere.
This will be our second time. We performed the same show at Sao Paulo Municipal Theater in 2022 and it sold out. It was wonderful.
And then you play Lobos pieces for guitar.
Johan and I, we play some guitar pieces. Coro number 1, the Preludes, the Brazilian popular suite, right? Which was also written for solo guitar. Besides, well, Irapuru, Amazon Forest, Little Train of the Caipira, Baquianas Brasileiras number 5 with guitar and electric guitar instead of cello or violin or voice, right? Anyway, so we adapted some things. For example, the guitar preludes, I arranged them for electric guitar, heavy, and with drums. Like it was a heavy metal theme, right? Because Villa Lobos already had that raw vibe, you know?
That he
Would have,
liked Sepultura, Villa Puta.
my friend. That's an unknown, but I hope so. You think so? Yes, I think so because Villa Lobos had a lot of that rebellious characteristic, you know? He was the one who did it. He was the one who made that phrase. He was the one who said that phrase at a certain time in his life when he was measuring his success by the booze because people didn't understand what he was doing. And man, Villa Lobos at the Modern Art Week, along with all those other artists, right? They recreated or created a national identity, right? Villa Lobos traveled around the country. He took children's songs and put them into classical music on the guitar. He brought street choro and put it into classical music, right? The little train of the Caipira, the themes, right? The Amazon rainforest, the Irapuru, the cultural themes of Brazil, right? Until that moment, after 100 years of Brazil's history, Brazil didn't have a culture, a national identity, right? And the Modern Art Week, through art, obviously, you create that identity, right? You rescue things from the streets and bring them to a national level, right? And what took Villa Lobos' music outside Brazil? Who to this day is the most played Brazilian composer outside of Brazil? By far more than Tom Jobim and Sepultura combined.
And Sepultura as well.
Sepultura as well, no doubt.
You haven't. Have you ever had?
No, Sepultura, like, because it's Brazilian.
I said maybe, but it's not maybe. It's the most famous Brazilian band outside of Brazil.
I think so. Of all time, I think so. As a band,
There's no question.
I think so. We've played in over 80 countries in 41 years, right?
How many strangers have you played for?
I mean, I try to avoid saying stranger because, man, culturally it's different. Every country is different. You go to the United States, it's completely different from Brazil. You might even see some similarities, but it's very different. Yeah, Albania, I don't know, not Albania, Armenia, right? We played in Armenia. We played in Georgia recently. We went to Singapore for the first time. Yeah, Iceland, which was spectacular. It was also the first time Sepultura played there recently. And Transylvania in Romania, which, man, is the land of Dracula. We played at a revival festival, 5 days of amazing metal with top revival bands.
Was the festival related to Dracula? Yes.
There's always something, right? Visiting Transylvania is like going to Virginia and not mentioning the ET.
Yeah, first I just wanted to go back here. You mentioned you were talking about Villa Lobos. Roots is, in a way, a modernist album.
I think so because it creates another Brazilian identity, not that stereotypical one. You know, the mulata, the samba school, which is often overused, right? Even Bahian music, tropicalismo or bossa nova itself, right? That Carmen Miranda thing, you know, the fruit hat and all that. It becomes something very stereotyped, and Brazil is much bigger than that. Not that it isn't part of Brazilian culture, it definitely is, but Brazil is much bigger than that, culturally speaking. And Sepultura showed that, man, heavy metal here in Brazil is like a nation of its own. Here, heavy metal is loved, it's adored, and it goes on. It definitely goes on. And Sepultura showed that, man, there's a way to make heavy metal with Brazilian influences and culture, with Brazilian rhythms, with the berimbau, with the viola capira.
Weren't you guys criticized for that?
Damn, that's actually a good thing, right? That means we're stepping on someone's toes.
And Villa Lobos can attest to that.
Who wants to do something and always be, you know, you're the man, you're the man, you're the man? No. Man, Elvis Presley basically killed himself, right? There's that whole idol thing, the idea of perfection and all that. That doesn't exist, right? So you really have to be challenged. You have to listen to criticism. And criticism is always very healthy, right? If you know how to take it in, right? Nowadays, you see on the internet and everything, you see people writing absurd things and accusing and lecturing, right? Like they know everything and so on. Everybody thinks they know everything, right? During the pandemic, everyone claimed to know about vaccines, viruses, and bacteria, etc. So we, as artists, we really end up getting used to this, right? Because everything is judged. Anyone is judged in society, right? Has long hair. A man can't do this. A woman can do that. Already 30 years old, not married yet. I don't know what else. Pressure from all sides. Because everyone wants to put you in a box, right? In boxes, right? Where you have to be this, right? And lately we've seen that, man, everyone is tearing up their boxes. I want to be free, and art has always been the path to freedom. Beatles, Picasso, Stravinsky, Beethoven, Mozart, all of them broke rules. They showed a different life, a different path, a different harmony, a different rhythm, different possibilities. Salvador Dali, right? Man, just look at the world. The world before and after the names I mentioned, especially the Beatles, right? Not just in relation to music or Sgt. Pepper's, but man, freedom of expression, feminism, drugs, right? That break from that post war patriarchal British society, right?
From monarchist.
Monarchist, right? The first son becomes a lawyer, the second a doctor, and so on. Being a musician isn't a real job, just being a bum. They've said that to me so many times. Have you heard it? Yeah, plenty.
Many, even after the success?
Even after the success, a lot of people still don't accept it. They don't see art as a profession, right? As something commercial. Like you selling your time, what you dedicate yourself to. Like I said, I study every day. I'm always preparing myself, reading with my ears open to what's going on, right? In music, not just in heavy metal, but in general. Uh, New technologies that are always coming up, right? When it comes to listening to music, to having access to music, that's always changing. And so, man, that's what saves us. During the pandemic, art saved a lot of people, right? More guitars were sold than ever before. More music courses was sold than ever before. People started watching the shows they'd never had time for. People started reading books, right? That had been sitting on the shelf for how many years? Finally, I'm going to pick up this book and read it. It changed a lot of people's lives. Those who knew how to take advantage of this tragic moment for humanity were able to develop things that the world and their routine didn't allow before. right? I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. I don't have. And then when everything shut down, what saved us? Art. So art needs to be valued. The artist is like a teacher, right? He will open doors for you to get to know yourself, self knowledge, your own experience. You listen to a Ninth Symphony alone on headphones and cry, right? Or listen to a song and get emotional. That's just yours, right? These are things that will move something inside you and lead you to self-knowledge. To be a more sensitive person, to be a person with a more sensitive perception where you can fit in and be part of a community, right? I think music taught me that. To work in a group, to know how to take criticism, to know how to hear no, to know how to present an idea, right? To present an idea in a group, to work, to organize, to look for solutions, right? So damn, being creative and not just in art, but in life in general, right? This Brazilian way, which is often seen as negative, also has its positive side because Brazilians have a unique creativity. He finds solutions in a very interesting way, right?
This time I wanted to try to understand how the fact that you are Brazilians influenced, or if it even influenced, Sepultura's success. What did you bring to heavy metal that was different? Thank you.
Brasil de Batucada, Carlinhos Brown, Bahia Music, Timbalada.
But before that,
Were you already successful? Yes, because man, the drummer was Igor, who was Brazilian. He was a Palmeiras fan with his father and brother, and they would go to the stadium, and he was already drumming there with the crowd at the stadium. Anyway, he started playing when he was 12 or 13 years old.
and you, what did you have that you think made the difference?
The viola caipira, sertanejo music, Tonico Tonique Tinoco, Sergio Reis, Roberto Carlos, everything I mentioned, Clara Nunes,
Is all of that in Sepultura?
without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Anthropophagy.
How could it not be, right? It's part of me, it's part of Max, it's part of Igor, it's part of Paulo. Trapalhões, SBT, Chico Anísio, Jô Soares, it's all in Sepultura, that's Brazilian culture. Belchior, Elis Regina, Vinicius de Moraes, it's all there. Caetano, Tropicalismo, like I said, it's all there. I love Egberto Gismonti, I love Rafael Rebelo, the great Brazilian guitarist, right? Villa Lobos, don't even get me started. Anyway, everything is in Sepultura.
Someone will say, man, he says all that, but he sings in English.
Yes. We sing in English, which is the language that took us outside of Brazil. I think this part of that stupid nationalism that took over Brazil, this thing about being a patriot, like I'm more Brazilian than you. By the way, how do you even measure that, right? Anyway, it's a joke, it's stupidity, right? So communication is more important than the tool, than what you're using. How are you going to judge communication through a guitar and a saxophone? If you play the same scale, if you have the same intention, it will come out with different sounds, but with the same message. We were talking about things from Brazil using English and often using Portuguese, right? I have another band, which is De La Tierra, that sings in Portuguese and Spanish. We sing together. There's an Argentine who does his part. That's Andres Jimenez from the band Animal. And I do some parts in Portuguese. And in the same song, we have both languages. Ramstein sings in German.
Singing in English may have been a reason, or was a reason, to make your message even more powerful because it reached more people.
No doubt.
And did it bring Brazil to a wider audience?
And look at our influences at the time. Bands from other countries that didn't speak English but sang in English, like Black Sabbath. No, Black Sabbath is English.
Others?
Okay. Yeah, Scorpions and Accept, two German bands that sang in English. Voivod, a Canadian band from the French part, sang in English. Loudness, a Japanese band, sang in English.
In other words, heavy metal was done in English.
It was done in English. There was also a French band, I forgot the name, few bands sang. There was Argentine heavy metal bands, for example, that only sang in Spanish. And it stayed very limited there.
It didn't go global?
It didn't make it. It stayed there, right? Maybe Barón Rojo V8, right? Those bands had some success, but it was more in Spain, There wasn't this thing of playing in the English-speaking world, as they say, right? But Sepultura was different by singing about Brazilian things in English. Inner Self, for example, their first music video. We shot it as we went across the city of Sao Paulo, skating at the São Bernardo skate park and all that. showing what daily life was like here, but in English, right?
Can I say that if we compared your art to a painting, what you do is like abstract painting and language is just another element in the composition of your canvas? Yes.
I started listening to Iron Maiden and similar bands even though I didn't understand English. You made the sound like U666, but there was a kind of magic to it. And a lot of what I learned of English came from music, from translating song titles or translating a phrase to know what the guy is saying. So that encouraged us to have this interest, also because of the movies, right? From Hollywood, everything came here. Anyway, uh, uh, but in this language, right? We would go out, go to Japan, speak English, go to France, speak English. So it was the language, right?
But suddenly you put in a song Biboca, Garagem, Favela, and Maloca. Yeah, Zé do Caixão, Zumbi, and Lampião.
What a trio, huh?
What was that? Was that a rescue? Is this a cultural thing?
That Rata Mahata, which we did in the studio. During the recording of Root,
Composed inside the studio?
it was composed in the studio. Carlinhos Brown traveled to Malibu while we recorded in the US.
The authors are you, Carlinhos Brown, and Max.
Sepultura and Carlinhos Brown. It's the four of us and Carlinhos Brown. We were there recording Root. Carlinhos Brown went there to do all this percussion process and everything. And those water jugs, right? Like water filter jugs. And it was empty there. He grabbed it and started drumming on it. And that's where the rhythm came from. A water jug, a water gallon. He even used that jug to record, right? He took it to the studio and recorded with it. And that's where we made that song. Max and I with the guitars, playing the riff and everything. And it developed from there. Rata Mahata means rat of Manhattan, right? That came from Carlinhos Brown's mind. Look at that. So Rata Mahata, Mahata, Mahata. It's like that percussive thing when you say it. So does it matter if it's in English or Portuguese? What is Rata Mahata?
It's abstract.
So it's not a language. It's something sound-based, right? It's something musical, percussive, right? It is. Bossa Nova, for example, you see Frank Sinatra singing Garota de Ipanema, but it's not the same thing, man. Bossa Nova has to be in Portuguese because it was created there. Anyway, and rock is in English, right? I think it's something that's really tied together, but you have that thing of inventing things. Art, it's limitless, right? And when you're feeling creative and you have a genius in the studio like Carlinhos Brown, man, dude, working with Carlinhos Brown was spectacular because everything worked. You know? When you go into the studio, you have that thing like everything has to be perfect. There can't be any noise, that kind of thing. Roots wasn't like that. Roots was, man, open the doors. If a bird enters or a dog barks, just let it happen.
And then you invited Ziramalho to sing this song?
Ziramalho was at Rock in Rio, exactly. Yeah, because we had this partnership of making some versions of Ziramalho's songs, right? The Sepultura version. And making a song with him from Sepultura, right? And I think Rata Marata had everything to do with it. Awesome.
That was cool, wasn't it?
It was amazing, man. That came from an idea by Andre Moraes, who's a composer, film scorer, producer, right? He works on movie soundtracks. And he did the soundtrack for Lisbela and The Prisoner. And there's the theme Dança das Borboletas, which is a track by Moraes Moreira and Zé Ramalho. And we re-recorded it with Sepultura playing and Zé Ramalho doing the vocals. Derek also did a part in English. In fact, it's interesting because Derek sings his part in English and Zé Ramalho sings his in Portuguese. Great. On the same track, which makes it really cool. And we also did the theme for The Assassin, which was the character played by Marco Nanini. The actor Marco Nanini, right? It turned out great. It was a fantastic experience. We met Zé Ramalho in the studio and clicked instantly. It was amazing. And man, we've always wanted to do this live, because the song only came out on the album, etc. He never had that opportunity. And then we did it at Rock in Rio with Zé Ricardo, who opened up this space on the Sunset Stage where he promoted or promotes, right? These unusual mixes to create exclusive and unique shows, right?
You joined Sepultura, but not from the beginning. Was there already a guitarist who left?
Yes, Jair.
Jair Gades, right? But you ended up fitting in perfectly with the Cavalera brothers. And you arrived at a time when, if I understood correctly what you meant, you were playing very similarly. Is that it? You guys became very close.
Yes, we practiced every day.
A symbiosis.
We practiced every day. I joined Sepultura in April of 87. April 16, 1987 is the day I consider when I moved to Belo Horizonte, right? When I went there.
Sepultura's headquarters was in Belo Horizonte.
BH. Man, Sepultura lived here on Torres do Indaya and Clube da Esquina was on the other side, right?
Was there any communication?
The scandal, guys. Yes, when Sepultura was rehearsing there, Irmão do Horizonte would come in and say, man, stop everything. Let's tune these instruments because they're all out of tune. These are stories I've heard, right? Since I joined the band and so on.
What did you reply? That it was in tune?
Yes, it was completely out of tune when they played.
You weren't yet. Yeah. Did you bring professionalism?
No, I don't mean that because I wasn't a professional either.
But you were the one who studied the instrument.
Yes, I dedicated myself to the instrument 100%.
That was something new in the band.
No, because they were dedicated too. Ego was already a monster on the drums. Ego was phenomenal.
Self-taught?
Yes, totally. And Max too. Max too. And well, with what we had at that time, it was almost a miracle to make a record. It was very difficult. There wasn't this computer technology to make a record in your backyard like there is today. You know, today it's very easy to have sound quality with a microphone. You can record something anywhere. You have plugins, you have 30 amplifiers, 100 amplifiers, I don't know, inside. Back then, really, man, just to find an amplifier to take it to the studio, the guy had a microphone. Anyway, it was really hard. And Cogumelo, which was the music store there in Belo Horizonte, invested and made the first Sepultura record happen, which is Sepultura and Overdose, which is just a record, each band on one side.
Before you arrived?
Yes, that was before I arrived. The success was so big that Cogumelo made a record for each one. Then they made Sepultura's album Morbid Visions and they made Seculo Vinte, right, from Overdose, which is one album for each.
And you joined on the third one.
I joined on the third, Schizophrenia, still with Cogumelo. That was the album, man, that we, like, I think it wasn't just my professional moment, as you say, but there's too Max, Igor, and Paolo, and even Cogumelo itself, you know, for having gone through that process. Man, with that Schizophrenia, we did work that was unheard of until then, you know, of artistic quality. We made a double album with the photo. We chose the font for the lyrics, you know, where the lyrics and information would go. We spent time there choosing the photos. We went after it. Yeah, the label on the album was also a drawing that Igor did exclusively for it. So it was very meticulous work and very well done. And it was a milestone in the history of Brazilian heavy metal, so much so that with this album, we got the contract with Roadrunner, you know.
Of worldwide heavy metal.
Worldwide, because it was like pirated in Europe, you know.
How did they bootleg it?
Yeah, they pirated Schizophrenia over there, sold a lot of records there. We didn't make any money. But the name Sepultura got spread throughout Europe, you know, which set things up for when we signed with Roadrunner and released Beneath the Remains in '89.
Was it bootleg records that made Sepultura famous around the world?
It helped. It definitely helped. It helped.
How ironic.
But it's the metal crowd, right? Anyway, I still have that record to this day. It's from Shark Records. Yeah, it was called Shark Records. I still don't know who made it.
Was the recording at least good?
It's not as good as the original, but man, it was pretty decent.
And what was it about Schizophrenia, the first album you were on, that changed Sepultura? What was the musical change on that album?
Man, I think it was the chemistry between me and Igor mainly, you know, musically, like we were really fired up. Playing more difficult stuff like Slayer, Destruction, more technical things because thrash metal was heading more in that direction. Testament, you know, more elaborate solos. Yeah, so I think within that spirit, Schizophrenia was created, you know. Max was playing guitar well too. He was starting to come up with those ideas, removing strings because the two strings were getting in his way. So he kept just four strings eventually, you know. So he was starting to move in that direction, pull back a little on guitar and focus more on vocals, you know. And he evolved a lot too, you know. You can see it from Morbid Vision, Psychosis to Schizophrenia because of the lyrics too. I brought a lot of lyrics, you know. From the past come the storms, escape to the void. Among others, it was me who brought them, you know. So they were lyrics written in Portuguese, and a friend of ours would translate the lyrics, translate them into English, and we would put them in the song. So the lyrics didn't make much sense. Let's just go with what you're good at. Ta 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 ta. That's how it was, you know. There wasn't really any concern about meter like that. It was something very like abstract, as you said. But it worked. It's a very well regarded album, and damn, it was really my first professional work, you know, going into a studio, recording like the whole thing, the entire album, right? Going through that whole process. Max and I, we used the same guitar and the same pick.
On the recording of that album.
I used the pick to record the album and still have it today.
So it wasn't a one take then, each one recorded separately.
Each one recorded their own part, yeah?
How did you rehearse with just one better guitar? Did you all use the same pick?
Exactly. We had all the instruments and notes for rehearsals, but when it came time to record,
But did you have a good guitar?
we had an Ibanez. That's why we only recorded one. And the other one, it was the only good one. The other was a local brand and didn't have, it was a Giannini. Giannini, and there was the Fink. Max had a Fink too, but it didn't have the quality for you to compare it with an imported guitar back then.
So it wasn't good for recording.
It wasn't good.
And the poetry you said I brought lyrics. Yes. But you told me that you sang in a way that we can hardly understand the lyrics. Yes. So why did the lyrics make a difference?
Because we started to talk, for example, schizophrenia is already a mental health theme. It wasn't a topic in vogue at that time, right? This thing about anxiety, teenage depression, things that unfortunately we see a lot today, right? High suicide rates and so on. We started talking about that. How old were we? I was 18, 19 years old, right? Talking about, this schizophrenic thing of the big city, the rush of daily life, the pressure, right? Long hair and tattoos, troublemaker and all that. A bunch of things we went through as young people in 1988, right? 87, 88.
That's what I wanted to get to. I wanted to touch on that to understand because it's something I'm interested in because I admit my lack of knowledge. There's a certain lexicon in heavy metal, right? There's a certain set of ideas that runs through all these bands in some way.
Yes.
And as we already talked about in our previous conversation a few months ago, it's clear that there's something related to the devil, to the demon, right? You mentioned 666, the number of the beast, at the start. There are also multiple devil references. And I wanted to understand where heavy metal stands as a movement, if it even stands as a movement.
Man, I see this mention of the devil as a criticism of the hypocrisy of the church, right? Because the one who invented the devil was the church or religion, right? There has to be an enemy, right? 666 came from the Bible, from Revelation, right? Apocalypse, Iron Maiden. Yeah, so it all came from there, from religion, from this idea, right, of the divine, of good and evil. So I think it's an attack on the hypocrisy of the church, on this thing, on the message, right? It's about respecting others. Everyone is equal, is the same. Poverty, the vow of poverty, chastity, man, that's what you see. The Vatican is an empire of gold, right? Of wealth, of political influence, of corruption, of cases of pedophilia, right? And nothing, none of the bishops, nobody has gone to jail until today, man. It's all a cover up. It's hell. Hell is right in there, regarding all this whole image, this facade, and what really happens, man. You know? So heavy metal presses on that sore spot. We talk about that. We talk about this hypocrisy, about politics, about war, about crusades, about this disrespect, right? About forcing you to believe in God, forcing you to be a way you don't want to be. In other words, curtailing freedoms, right? Through dogmas and not through argument, philosophical process, or persuasion. No, you believe. If you don't, you burn. That's it, right? Burn them.
You mentioned many serious moments in the history of the church, like the Crusades, there was the Inquisition. When you talk about that, do you think that heavy metal also questions the message of Jesus, this message of loving your neighbor, or is it more about how this message has been carried out over time?
No, heavy metal's criticism is not directed at the person, it's aimed at the political structure. It's this idea of God on earth, of the empire, of kings, of this privilege, of having direct contact with God and so on. And the laws, right? Yes, sacred books that nobody knows who wrote, right? Historically, it's a very confusing thing. Virgin Mother, resurrection. So it's weird, right? So you have to believe in that to form a concept of creation, of life, of what paradise is, of what hell is, if that even exists, right? Yeah, death, which I know we're going to talk about today. Death, it gets used this way by the church, as a form of punishment, right? Death isn't punishment, death is inevitable. Death is what gives meaning to life, right? Finitude, we're going to end someday. This interview will end, the movie ends, the book ends. In the end, that's when you have the chance to analyze things. Because in the present moment, you are being. You're not analyzing, you're just being. Afterwards, you look back and think, damn, man, maybe that wasn't it. I learned something here. I made a mistake there, and so on. You do it, right? The moral of the story, so to speak. What's the moral of the story? The end, right? It gives you or opens up other perspectives and other questions for you, right?
Do you only see negative things in the Catholic Church?
No, I don't want to create controversy with the Catholic Church, you know? Yeah, it's not a personal fight. But man, I grew up in a Catholic school, São José School, there in São Bernardo do Campo. And man, you go to a religion class and you don't have access, you don't have dialogue, you know. That's something that bothers me. You don't have dialogue. You have to be forced to accept the family the way it has to be. Family is this, it's a man, a woman, and I don't know what else. A woman can't do this, a man can't do that. A man with long hair? No. A woman with short hair? No. Can a woman wear a skirt or bikini? No.
Man, there have been some developments recently.
Where?
For example, Pope Francis brought some openness. He wanted to include homosexuals.
Has any priest, bishop, or pedophile gone to jail?
In some countries, yes.
No. No one was. Everyone is unequal. Any pope you put in, including John Paul II, where the biggest absurdities happened, right? If you look at the history of pedophilia and those stories, right? They just moved them from one parish to another or take them out of one country and put them in another. No one up until today that I've seen has faced justice like that.
There are cases.
Doesn't pay taxes, right? Why doesn't it pay taxes? Why doesn't the church pay taxes? Why doesn't religion pay taxes? What's the privilege? Why this privilege? They say, sell to me, I don't know what, right? Christ's message is very simple. You only see church doors closed, man. People on the street against abortion, against the legalization of drugs, against emancipation, against the emancipation of anything, right? The freedom of the individual, right? You have to believe in that.
Is that your issue or about heavy metal in general?
I think it's both, right? Do you think that's, but heavy metal isn't just that. Heavy metal is also Deep Purple, right? Speed King talks about cars, speed, motorcycles, I don't know, about space, about scientific and technological things. Heavy metal talks about everything, including religious stuff.
The thing about the devil isn't about glorifying the devil, it's irony.
No, but who invented the devil, man? Glorification? Why glorification or irony?
I'm just asking because the devil shows up often, not just in the lyrics, but also on the covers and in the music videos.
And in movies too. Look at how many movies talk about the devil. That's not unique to heavy metal. It's a religious thing. The one who invented the devil was religion.
For example, even
Until recently, if you look at history, there was no such figure as Satan. Satan came from the word Satan, which is an Arabic word that means foreigner.
in Hebrew, it's ha Satan, which means the accuser.
Yes, so the foreigner, the accuser, the bad guy, right? The strange guy, the weird guy, the guy who doesn't fit into the boxes, right? Wherever it is, whatever culture you're in, you know? Anyway, and it's not a personal war, it's just questioning. People don't question, they just absorb. You're born and baptized so fast you barely have time to breathe. Why do they baptize with just a few months? You don't have time for argument, for dialogue. If the case is so obvious, why the fear? Right? So, man, I've traveled to 80 countries. It's just a point of view about creation, about what heaven is, about what hell is. Besides, right, Judaism and Islam, man, you have the Buddhist point of view, which isn't a religious structure. You don't have a bishop, you don't have a leader, you don't have a pope, you don't have whatever it is. It's something personal, yours, about meditation, including getting rid of concepts and definitions, clearing your mind to reach nirvana. meditation, self knowledge, right? Absorbing both positive and negative things because we are the result of both, right? So, hey, why not question it? Why not speak up? Why be afraid to talk about this, to talk about what's happening today? There are people dying because of abortion. There are people dying because we don't have euthanasia in the country. And badly, without dignity, forgotten.
This brings us to an issue that was what brought us together, that made us, right, led to our first meeting when I went to interview you about euthanasia. And I got to know the story of your wife, Patricia.
Yes,
That story changed the way you see life.
no doubt.
What changed after that? But first, I'd like to ask you to tell us exactly what happened so we can understand the situation.
Yes, in January 2021, my wife was diagnosed with cancer. She went to the hospital thinking she had a kidney stone. That had already happened about 2 years ago. There was nothing 2 years ago. And suddenly there was a tumor there, right? It was in the intestine anyway, a very delicate area. And from there, we started treatment. In the middle of the pandemic, the world was kind of slowly getting back to normal. And I was really grateful to be in this process because Sepultura wasn't touring, right? There were no tours or anything. So I was at home. I stayed home from day one until the last day anyway.
There weren't any shows during that time?
Not in 2021, only in 2022 when I started going back on tour, right? From January to September, there were two surgeries, heavy ones, obviously, and chemotherapy, right? Chemotherapy sessions where she faced it in a spectacular way, very positively, always facing it head on. She didn't lose her hair. She didn't get into that, that state. Obviously, it was a very tough process, but man, with a lot of, how do you say, dignity, a lot of motivation, like, damn, let's beat this, man. And yeah, let's go. It's tough, but let's go. In September, the tumor disappeared. Man, everyone was so happy. Let's throw a party. I'm part of a group called Hospitals, right? The Hospitals, several musicians and bands from Brazil who get together and we go play in hospitals, in daycare centers, in places serving sick people living on the streets, all kinds of situations, right? We've done a lot of things like that. And she said, hey, let's ask the Hospitals group to do a show, throw a party for me because, man, this nonsense is over and so on. A month later, the illness returned. Was there a show? No. Yeah, then later, because the illness came back really fast, a month later, it was already back. Anyway, she had to do chemotherapy again, go through the whole process all over. It always comes back worse, man. Yeah, and then it was a blow because that emotional hit was really tough. In January, she got COVID. She was kind of isolated in the hospital. I had to go on tour because Sepultura started working again, but then I got a call and
I would go out to play and you felt bad, right?
no, I was in Europe, but she was at home, at home. She was in the hospital at home anyway. She was with family, well taken care of, had health insurance, everything was okay. I went back to work because I needed to after 2 years off. Now it's time to return. And well, I was confident that everything was, we're on the right track. But then, about a week and a half into the tour, I get a call from the doctor saying, man, I think you better come back. I don't know. You need to, etc. No, come back because I'm here. No, I already knew that. But anyway, yeah, because we're going to try something. I don't know what. And I think it's good for you to be here, etc. And I came back, right? We got another guitarist for Sepultura, Jean Paton. He came, Sepultura continued the tour. And I went back to Brazil, stayed with her for another 2 or 3 weeks. And man, those were really tough moments, seeing the physical decline, right? The consequences of chemotherapy and ICU stay. And when the palliative care team came in, which was just in the last few days, I think it was only a week, maybe not even that. And I started to question, as a Brazilian citizen, I realized I was really unprepared for a moment like this, man. No one talks about death in the family. No one wants to talk about inheritance. No one wants to talk about coffins. How do you want to die? What do you want to do with that piece of land? Where does the house go and all that?
Did you want to talk but couldn't or just weren't ready?
To talk about this, I noticed that we don't talk about it. I wasn't ready and didn't know how to talk to the doctor. I didn't know you could say no to the doctor. I didn't realize I could say no, like, I don't want this procedure,
And you just let things happen.
like everyone else. I began to wonder why euthanasia isn't discussed in this country. Look at the case of Patricia lying here in bed, pressing the morphine button nonstop, fully aware of what's happening because she would come and go. A lot of people went there to say goodbye to her. Those were amazing moments. This is Patricia. Yeah, this is Patricia. Patricia is this one here, this one, in your acquaintance.
In yours at the start of the relationship.
That's right. It was at the beginning. And man, and you just don't talk about it. Why don't I have that possibility in Brazil, that option? I didn't know I could have taken her to Switzerland so she could have that right, the freedom to choose euthanasia.
Like Antonio Cicero did later.
Antonio and other Brazilians who do it, and we don't even know. They have to leave the country to do it abroad, and nobody talks about it here. Patricia always, I noticed that, well, Patricia always talked about death in a very light way, and she would say it to anyone who wanted to listen. Yeah, ever since I was dating her, she used to say, man, when I die, don't forget to put socks on my feet, my pajamas, pillow, and blanket, because I don't want to be cold, and I don't want to be uncomfortable. And man, she said that to everyone. If she saw you today for the first time and the subject came up, she would say it right away. No, when I die, I want my pillow. I don't know what else. And everyone would laugh, right? Man, when she died, everyone knew what she wanted. Man, that's priceless. That's priceless.
Talking about death.
Having talked, everybody knew. Where's the pillow? Where's the little sock?
Did they put it
Of course, man. Man, doing that is priceless.
in a coffin?
Yes. Her little socks, pajamas, and pillow are all arranged just the way she wanted. Everyone knew there was no conflict. My mother thinks one thing, her son thinks something about her, the husband has his own ideas. Then the arguments begin, followed by other issues. Because the land is mine, because of the inheritance and all that. People just don't talk, man. People don't talk about it. Why not discuss it while alive? When do people. Was it that.
Did you have that feeling of, wow, I could have thought of all this, but I didn't? Was it right after the death?
The week she died, right then? I'm saying this right at this very moment.
But did it make you wake up to this, all of this?
All of this, of everything that's happening right in front of me, I didn't know there was a hospice movement. I didn't know the real capacity and scope of palliative care.
What is the hospice movement?
So you tell me.
I don't know.
See? It's a hospital specialized in end-of-life care.
Palliative.
Palliative. There's one in Curitiba, and recently one opened in Salvador.
Public or private?
I'm not sure. I think one is private and the other public, maybe through SOS. And man, we don't know. And these things exist. Why don't we talk about death? There's a stigma around it. And then that's one more thing that religion doesn't help with. Religion doesn't talk about that. It doesn't. It says that death is a sin. Not a sin, it's hell. If you don't do the thing, it's punishment. You know? It's not punishment. Death is not punishment. Death is our best teacher. For me, death was my greatest teacher. If I admired Patricia in life, then in her death, man, she didn't wear masks. She didn't cling to superstition. She was there, aware of what was happening. Her body didn't work anymore.
And she realized it.
Why didn't they give her that possibility as a Brazilian? Who is going? Who is preventing this? What interest does my neighbor have in knowing how my wife is going to die or not? Damn, man. Let's talk about the subject. Things already happen in hospitals. Do you think euthanasia doesn't already happen within the medical community?
Does it?
Of course it happens, man. How? I'm not a doctor, but it's really naive to think it doesn't happen, man. I know that as a journalist, you have to have your sources and all, but come on, 2 plus 2 is 4. When there are possibilities and everything, things already happen. Why is this kept from the general public? With information, with statistics, with possibilities. The United States, for example, is a gigantic country. The legalization of marijuana started in Oregon, started in Colorado, then went to California, New York. Today, now it's becoming more and more nationwide. Canada was national because Canada is like a strip. It's a small thing. Brazil, why don't we do a test, for example, legalizing marijuana in Pernambuco? I don't know. Euthanasia, we do it in Paraná. Man, you have research, you have investment, you have statistics, so you can look at it on a national level and discuss possibilities. So, euthanasia is done in several different ways in various places, assisted suicide.
There are actually two types, right? There's assisted death, which includes assisted suicide, isn't there?
Assisted suicide, where you administer it yourself, right?
And euthanasia, when you allow it,
When you are not able to, yeah, exactly.
you support both.
Yes, I support that, right? That option. A lot of people think that if there's euthanasia, doctors will go around killing everyone, but that's not it. You're Catholic, you have your beliefs, you don't have to be forced to use this. Stick to your beliefs, extend the treatment, intubate, try as much as you can, do it the way you think is best. But don't stop me from having the possibility to find mine. That's a matter of personal freedom of choice. Wow. Who is going to measure what life means for someone else? I've spent my whole life drawing. Now I'm blind. I don't want to live anymore. No, but you can. You breathe. You man, the choice is mine. What do you have to do with this?
I have nothing to do with it. Damn.
Man. Why can't we exercise our freedom and talk about this? To have the possibility. Patricia's case was a classic case of euthanasia, man. And we, knew there was no way it was irreversible. It was just suffering.
You started talking about this publicly.
You're already out there the next day.
Where are you going to talk? Are you doing shows?
I'm going everywhere, man. I started because the first place I went was to Anna Butler, who organizes the hospitals. I said, man, Patricia asked for the party. Let's do the Pat Pat Fest. That's where Pat Pat Fest came from. From Patricia's wish to celebrate the first phase of cancer, which was a success, in quotes, right?
And what is Pat Fest like?
Pat Fest will be held for the fourth year on November 26th in Sao Paulo at Odio, with the participation of great artists, our friends, and Patricia's as well, since she knew everyone. She was someone who really brought people together, right? That's why I started the Maitricia movement, which is João Gordo's nickname for Patricia, because she was like a mother to everyone, right? She was always very present, with everyone. She talked to everyone and so on. The Maitricia movement was created to encourage conversations about death. PatFest, for palliative care, I met Professor Alexandre, who runs Favela Compassiva in Rio de Janeiro. He brings palliative care to the favelas of Rocinha and Vidigal. Now we have a partnership with Heliopolis Compassiva, which works in the Heliopolis favela in the Heliopolis community. And it's not just about the financial aspect of giving the PatFest funds to these two movements, right? But also about bringing up the topic. Man, I went on Pedro Bial, I went on Marcelo Taz, I went to talk, I went to speak on all the podcasts. Pat Fest, spreading the word. I went there to Rocinha. They made a room called Mother Trisha there to train new, how do you say it? Yeah, volunteers, right? Volunteers who come to help and everything. It just keeps growing, and in recent years, palliative care has become more prominent.
You're also campaigning for universal palliative care?
Yes, without a doubt.
So that the world has access.
And recently we launched, I'm one of the founding members, so I make the decisions.
That's my question then. What is I Decide? How is it going? Is it managing to open paths?
Yes, we have more and more members. I think it's been a little over 2 months.
Decided?
No, this one is Rosa Dubem from Americana, who does breast cancer screening work in Pink October, which you are also supporting. Yes, hospitals, this one is the hospitals. The hospitals group that went to Americana to perform at the opening of all the celebrations. And on October 19th, there will be the Rosa Dubem Walk in Americana. Man, thousands of people to bring attention to breast cancer. Especially for people with less access to information, right? Because the possibilities are out there. The problem is reaching people, right?
Talking to some people from Udecido, I understood that there's a major challenge and that some people think Brazil isn't ready for this discussion.
No, it's ready because we are Brazilians and we're doing this. We're more than ready. To me, it's absurd that Antonio Cicero, like several other Brazilians, has to leave the country to do this in Switzerland. Brazil has the technological, ethical, and intellectual capacity to do this here. And there are a lot of Brazilians using this method, and only those who have money and those who don't are forgotten. They're suffering. Brazil is one of the worst countries in the world to die in. Something has to be done.
Why is it among the worst places to die?
Because of this, because nobody talks about it, man, like forgotten people. I went there to see Professor Alexander's work. Man, a lot of people just want to listen to or talk about the story, change the mattress, paint the bedroom wall that's dirty. Man, it's not just morphine, it's not just medication. Palliative care goes way beyond that. It's psychology, it's physical therapy, it's love, it's compassion, empathy for others. Have you ever heard that somewhere?
You said that today when you criticized the church, you of all people. Exactly.
The other person, man, is the one who needs it, right? Give a little dignity. Does he have an incurable disease? Yes. But man, the guy isn't dead. It's not over. It's until the last breath. So this work, it's fundamental. For me, medicine should be palliative.
There you go. All of it.
In any case, medicine is not a fight against death. Death is not the enemy. How is death the enemy? Death is an inevitable factor, people. The doctor, he's not a miracle worker who's going to cure the person. We need to know how to deal with that. Today we live with COVID. Why? There's a vaccine, there's everything that happened today, we live with it. We live with a lot of things, with colds, with illness, with diabetes, with a lot of things, right? There's no cure. A lot of things don't have a cure, but we live with it and we survive with it. And what is that? It's palliative thinking. Microdoses of mushrooms and hallucinogens help a lot with anxiety and depression.
But why do you think Brazilians don't accept this? Is it just religion? We're living in a time of growing conservatism in every way, not just within religion. Yes, you even began by discussing patriotism and what it means to be a patriot. Why is it so hard to talk about euthanasia in Brazil?
Due to all the prejudice, right? Death is surrounded by much prejudice.
Are people more conservative than we thought?
It's not just conservative people, man. Left wing people are also afraid of death. It's not about right or left or just about Brazil.
Fear of talking about death and fear of allowing euthanasia.
Yes, fear of talking about death, fear of balancing things. For example, there's a tool called a living will, which is a will where you go there. If I'm not able to speak, if I become a vegetable, you have several possibilities there.
I had Brula Martinovic here, yes, whom you must know, right? Yes, she told me about her living will.
And it's a tool, man, that you need to have a doctor by your side because he will lay out the options depending on whatever situations may come up. And you're there. It's there, man. Your will is there. I don't want this to be prolonged, or I don't want to be intubated, or I don't want to have this treatment or this thing. Anyway, you have a vision of possibilities and you do this with your family, your son, your wife, your father, your grandfather. Anyway, you have a connection. Death, it can be a connection with the family. A delicate subject that can bring the family closer together to talk about things that were never talked about before, right? In Patricia's case, of course, everyone knows what she wanted. Man, fulfilling the wish of the person you love the most, who's right there, that's priceless, man. There's no price for that.
Did she express that wish to die at that final moment?
No, she didn't express it because she was already kind of like, she said, no, I don't want to die. But man, several times, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. That, yes. But not like saying I want to die.
Do you think if you'd given her the option, she might have forgotten?
No doubt. Absolutely no doubt. And man, if we talk about death from the moment we're born, this moment doesn't have to be as terrifying as it is. We'll already be used to dealing with death because it's part of life. Well, death taught me that, man, finitude has to be respected in the sense that you have to live in the present. Live fully today since tomorrow isn't guaranteed. Don't leave things for tomorrow. What did the pandemic teach us once again? There is no tomorrow. You can't leave the house. So I'm going to read a book. I'm going to learn guitar. I'm going to watch my series. I'm going to invest in myself, in art, in culture, in knowledge. Limit. When you say about a child, this child has no limits, no manners, right? Limit. Education is limit. Death is education. Of one's own life, there is no punishment. There's hell. There's no paradise. There's this here today.
This is the only life there is.
This is it. It's the present. If there's anything else, we'll deal with it in that present moment.
When that thing happens,
Not exactly, in many other ways. So nobody knows what death is. We have several, right, hypotheses, etc. But I don't see death as a punishment. It's inevitable. We're born knowing we'll die.
do you think there's anything after this life?
Man, I can think all kinds of things. I read a lot about different possibilities.
What do you really think?
I believe this energy endures. Yeah, Spiritism helped me a lot too, reading about near death stories, about going there and coming back.
The near death experiences.
Experiences, right? This thing that you still carry an identity, that you recognize yourself with people from the past, like a grandfather, people, who are going to welcome you and who are still there. There is a hierarchy, right? That you go there and see your whole life, that you choose the family you come to, that you choose your father, that you choose your life. So there are interesting stories, it's not like Sepultura made an album based on Dante Alighieri, right? And his vision of hell. Hell is completely different from that vision of fire and everything. Dante Alighieri's hell is ice, right? It's ice. It's something like still kind of, it's totally different from that idea of hell from South Park, right? With Saddam Hussein. Do you think that if there is a hell, it would be sensational?
If hell exists, Saddam Hussein will be in it, right? No.
People create their own hell, right, here today, because the idea of it exists, right? This idea of what hell is was created. And many times people enter their own hell here, right, in their own lives by holding themselves back, by, well, getting frustrated and creating expectations and so on. All that psychological and emotional stuff that we deal with every day. Man, after Patricia's death, actually, I stopped drinking before that.
Right? You don't drink at all.
I haven't had alcohol in 5.5 years. So I was really happy that Patricia could see that too. A lot of the things she used to complain about had to do with alcohol, things, well, we already know what alcohol does and what alcohol abuse causes, right? So I was really happy that she could see that I stopped and never went back. I was doing well with it, during the pandemic, March 16th. No, actually, March 1st, 2020, I stopped drinking. And then look what happened after, man. Pandemic, shows canceled, Patricia's cancer, she passed away. After all that, man, I started meditating, started taking cold showers, started reading about Buddhism, about Spiritism. Yeah, I started working out, doing Pilates, started taking care of myself.
You didn't take care of yourself before, right?
Not really. I thought I was taking care of myself, but I wasn't. When you really take care of yourself, you start to notice a new energy, new frequencies, right? Yeah, challenges, possibilities, and so on, right? So I think all these blows we take, I can only be grateful for them. Man, as paradoxical as it may seem, everything that happened in my life, I'm here today because of all of it. Everything is a lesson. We can't think that the world is all sunshine and roses, that you won't have problems, or that money is going to solve everything. Man, how many millionaires out there? I'll mention two, Lincoln Park and Soundgarden. From them, my idol, Chris Cornell, a millionaire with a family and everything. The guy killed himself, right? Yeah, depression, anyway, it's a disease, but we know that outside pressure, isolation, the more famous you are, the more isolated you are, right?
But did it happen to you too?
We never let that happen because we were always very, at least I was, man, this fame thing, whatever, it never really got in my way, I think. I enjoy who I am as a consequence of what I did, but it wasn't what I was looking for. You know what I mean?
I get it. You weren't looking for that. I understand. And what do you and the group You Decido want to happen in more practical terms in Brazil? What needs to happen?
First, we need to talk about the subject, which is the elephant in the room in Brazilian society, that the problem exists, that there are many people who need this tool for freedom of choice, and that Brazil does not offer it through the law. So we want to have a national public discussion that makes the political class more receptive so that we can have this possibility legalized. Here in Brazil, eu decido, period.
You mean the success of this movement would be reaching Congress and getting a law passed, right?
We know it's a tough road, right? We see expectations and
How many years do you think this will take?
I don't know. If it happens in 10 years, I'll be happy. It's not for now. I think it's actually a very optimistic thing, but man, you never know. The movement has to start. And I'm very honored and happy to have received the invitation from Luciana D'Adalto and Adriano Silva, who are the ones who started it.
Founders of you?
Decido. Yeah, along with me, I'm also a founding member, along with some other people who also joined. But Luciana D'Adalto was someone I met through, my search for palliative care and Pat Pattyfest. And people who talk about euthanasia, and Luciana is one of the most important people regarding euthanasia here in Brazil. She's been fighting, struggling, and studying for years. She went to Europe, took part in assisted suicide in Switzerland, observed in Germany, and so on. These are people who have been seeing this happening worldwide for a long time in various sectors in several countries, including Colombia, Argentina, Peru, neighbors here with whom we don't have that much cultural contact, right? Not much. Because of Portuguese and Spanish, we're distant from countries like that. Colombia, for example, is a good case in several situations.
Uruguay is going down the same path, right?
Uruguay with the legalization of marijuana, also with euthanasia, right? Yeah, Portugal recently, after a period of 10 years, also legalized euthanasia. It's happening in Spain too, and in Germany.
They are Catholic countries.
Exactly. This isn't about religion, guys. Everyone will die. Do you want to die the way you want according to your beliefs? That's the freedom we're defending, not just for me, but for you too, if you're Catholic. You won't be forced to do anything you don't want. So don't force me to do what I don't want to do. Freedom goes both ways. Why does one person get the privilege and the other get denied?
Can I invite you?
Go ahead.
Shall we have some water for part 2?
Let's go. Let's go.
Go. I'm starting. Look, so you can see. Should I stay here?
Should I stay here?
Stay, please.
Wow, this place is really cool, huh?
The idea here was I was going to build a kitchen, but then I said, I'm a cook. I'm a writer. So the kitchen is inside the library. After all, I needed a place to put the books.
Man, I went to New York recently and I found a place that's a library with only gastronomy stuff. And they have a kitchen inside the library. It's a lot like it is.
It's similar to this idea here.
And I think they cook there, but they only talk about food. It's a library, a bookstore, not a library. Bookstore. A big bookstore that only has books about gastronomy. It's really cool.
Did you audition to be called for Sepultura? How was it?
Damn, I didn't do an audition, man, but I did an audition without knowing it, because when I went on vacation to Belo Horizonte from Rio in January of 87, I went there with some friends, It's just for fun and meeting girls. Everything's there. I went to Sepultura's rehearsal with the guys and everyone liked you.
If you want to put it on Panettone, it's great too.
See? Here it seems to be. So since I already had my band in São Paulo and everything, I went to Sepultura's rehearsal, and during the break I sat with Igor and started playing Slayer.
But did you go because there was an opening?
No, I just went to watch the rehearsal and have fun, meet the guys and hang out.
And then,
during the rehearsal break, I grabbed Gyro's guitar and started playing with him.
But Sepultura, Igor, Max, weren't they idols to you? They were just starting out too.
No, but I already admired what they were doing, no doubt. It was already like, how come?
Damn, these guys are cool.
No doubt. Sepultura was already creating an atmosphere and was already stirring things up. There were already international fanzines with Sepultura on the cover, which is a pretty underground thing, right? Those real fanzine things, like photocopied and all. But it was already starting to happen here in Brazil. Man, releasing an album like that, damn, it was, like I said, something really, really hard, So it already put the band on a different level,
And then when you joined, were there already fans? Were you already doing shows? Was there already an audience?
Yes, there were definitely people in Belo Horizonte.
Only in Belo Horizonte?
No, in Rio de Janeiro too. Our first show was at Circo Voador. We also played in São Paulo at Mambembe. We played at Ginástico in Belo Horizonte, a large gym for the Schizophrenia release, right? So there was already a strong scene. There was Dorsal Atlântica in Rio, there was Vulcano, Ratos de Porão too, which came from the punk world but was being more influenced by metal, by Anthrax, that kind of thing, SOD, right? Yeah, so there was a scene, there was Corzes, right? Anyway, Viper. There was a strong scene here in Brazil that was growing, right?
The other photo I was going to bring here, damn, this here, what is it? First international trip, one of the first ones.
This is my first or maybe second time in New York. This is on 42nd Street back when it's still, well, it's happening.
Live, the nude right there.
Yeah, there's nothing left, right? They cleaned up New York. After that, when Rudolph Giuliani cleaned all this up, zero tolerance. Yeah, exactly.
But did you guys play at this place here? No.
No, man, we were just walking around New York taking photos.
No, I don't know, just random places. You played here where the live nude sign was, right? No.
No, not there. It was just to take the photo.
This look here, what was the inspiration? Thrash metal?
Metallica, Exodus.
Explain it to me, please. What's the difference between thrash, death, and heavy?
Man, Motorhead, I think they were the ones who influenced guys like Metallica and the whole thrash metal scene. Thrash metal, this guy.
So is it just trash with an extra H?
Yeah, it's not thrash as in trash. Thrash has a different meaning, like something heavy, something. It's okay for it to be a bit dirtier, but it's something more aggressive.
It really is dirtier, right?
Yeah, that's where Metallica, Anthrax, Megadeth started, right? Slayer too. And Sepultura themselves, we had that thrash vibe, right? Which, man, is music that comes from guitar riffs with lots of solos and, well, that aggressive vocal thing, right? More shouty. And Motorhead kind of went beyond Black Sabbath, right? Considered the great creator of heavy metal. I think Motorhead was the band that brought together that punk and rock and roll thing, you know? That's when metal bands started being more influenced by bands like GBH and the Misfits, for example, Metallica, right? That Finnish hardcore thing. Bands called Ratos, Tervet Cadet, right? English Dogs, Sex Pistols themselves, The Clash, and Ramones, right? They also had a big influence.
Do Ramones have anything in common with heavy metal?
They do. People started to be influenced by this style later on. In the beginning, things weren't really divided, but for example, Ratos de Porão and Sepultura played a show at Bambambi in '87, which was a milestone for crossover, right? Bringing punk and heavy metal together. Before that, there was much violence.
Between bands?
Not between bands, between metal and punk.
Okay, the fans?
From the people on the street and all that, you know? How?
The soccer fan supporters?
The bald guys, right? The skinheads too. But it was really violent, man. It was actually very dangerous.
And how did that end?
It was through evolution, right? Of people and seeing that everything was the same. Let's put it that way. Out there wasn't as much division as there was here in Brazil, right? So seeing that the bands had this connection, people here started to see things differently too, right?
And death metal, how is it characterized?
I think it's mostly because of the satanic themes. Death metal has this vibe of talking about Satan, like we mentioned, right? About black magic. Black metal, right? By Venom.
There are a lot of variations, right?
White metal is mainly a gospel genre.
But it's all metal.
All metal.
Everyone will make this gesture.
Thanks to Tony Iommi.
What does this mean here?
Man, there's a lot of stuff. According to Ronnie James Dio, who made this symbol famous, it was something his Italian grandmother used to do, which, you know, meant good luck or good vibes, right?
This isn't about the devil's horn, you know, but...
It does. I think in the end it does, because they use this symbol, right? Like Black Sabbath, right? Heaven and hell, mob rules. So I think he was influenced by his grandmother, but you also see John Lennon on the Yellow Submarine cover, right? He's there in the little drawing. And Gene Simmons from KISS used to do that too for a while before Dio.
Can KISS be called heavy metal?
Man, KISS is a band that every heavy metal fan loves, man. Not me. I mean, it's rare to see someone from all those bands talk bad about KISS, or that's the impression I get.
Because I wasn't raised on heavy metal. I was always more into rock, progressive rock, you know? I liked Jet and stuff, yes.
Yeah, I love that too.
KISS was something I admired from a distance. When they played in Brazil, I used to joke with kids in my building and would go downstairs dressed up. I thought there was a bit of showmanship in that whole dressing up thing. Yeah. That's it. That's the only reason I think they're not heavy metal, just because they dressed up and were different from the rest.
I'm not saying KISS was influenced by heavy metal. Some KISS albums got heavier, especially after they took off the makeup, right?
Is it better without the makeup?
No, I think they became a bit freer with their music. That's true.
You're talking about art.
They were more into ballads. Because KISS, when they took off their masks, they kind of created that glam thing, right? Again, that they were influenced by Alice Cooper, by People talk a lot about Secos and Molhados. There's also that, right? That controversy, right? Kiss's manager saw Secos and Molados and supposedly took their idea. Were they influenced by Secos and Molados? Ney Mato Grosso has mentioned this story.
But there's no confirmation.
There's no 100% confirmation because Kiss says it came from Japanese theater, right? From Kabuki. Kabuki, yeah. Which also makes sense, right? Because it has those characteristics and all.
But it also has to do with Secos and Molhados, yes.
Kiss is rock and roll, right? Kiss is rock and roll, right? But if they were influenced at a time when heavy metal emerged, for sure.
You asked like, hey, do you think Andres from Sepultura likes Kiss? I say, no way.
I love Kiss, man. Kiss was one of my first bands, like Queen and Kiss, right? But there was a time when I only listened to Kiss, and my name is Kisser, right? So I thought there was a connection.
But Kisser is real, right?
My name is Kisser. It's my grandfather's name.
Right? It comes from Germany?
It comes from Germany, Ukraine and Germany. And then, man, Kiss Army. My dream was to be part of the Kiss Army. Yeah, and man, when Kiss came to Brazil in '83, man, that was my first big concert, you know, to see that up close, the Creatures of the Night tour. And all that fire, explosions, the tank, right, coming forward there at Morumbi Stadium. That changed my life, man. That was really impactful, man, to see that here.
And what was it like when you realized you were a guy like that, someone you admired?
I think it was at Rock in Rio in '91, man. When we got to the dressing room, suddenly Rob Halford from Judas Priest, the lead singer, showed up to meet us, man. I said, damn, man. The god of metal. Judas Priest, the guy wants to meet Sepultura, man. That really messed with my head.
What do you mean?
Because, man, the guy knows we exist. You know, he's interested in finding out, man, Sepultura. We'd already released Beneath the Remains, and Arise was about to come out, but not yet. He went there, showed interest, wanted to meet us and say hi. That was amazing. Was Little there? We played with Guns N' Roses, Judas Priest, and Queensryche, right?
This is the photo with Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, so this is from that time right here.
Did you play on the same night as Guns N' Roses?
On the same night, we opened, and that's when that thing with Lobon happened, right? When he left the stage.
It was that night.
That night, they put Lobon among the heavy metal bands, right? And today, he talks bad about it.
Do you think Guns N' Roses had anything to do with your sound? Guns N' Roses was, man...
For me, Appetite for Destruction is a masterpiece, right? And here they were at their peak, right? In '91, they were at their peak. The show was spectacular, man. Spectacular. But it's not heavy metal either, but in the heavy metal community, it's very respected. There are a lot of people who like it, no doubt. And there are a lot of people who hate it too, right?
Who is for you considered the greatest guitarist in Brazil?
The best guitarist in Brazil, right? Me?
Or of heavy metal, at least?
I don't know. That's all relative.
Undoubtedly Brazil's greatest guitarists. So who can we include?
No, I think that damn heavy metal really fostered that kind of virtuosity, you know? Which Brazilian rock kind of pushed aside a bit. You have Sergio Dias, for example, who is a guy that can't go unmentioned. He's the guy from Mutantes who revolutionized music, Brazilian rock, and the electric guitar. The Diaz brothers, right? Both Arnaldo and Sergio, and the other brother whose name I can't remember now, but who built the amplifiers, built the pedal from scratch, from nothing. Revolutionary guys. Mutantes, right? Rita Lee, the Batista brothers, right? Anyway. And man, like Sergio Diaz had his Yes phase, right? He was influenced there with Limina on bass, doing crazy stuff, very progressive and so on, right? That was kind of because of punk and disco, which happened there at the end of the 70s, that was dismissed as old man stuff, like it's not for old people. Drum solos, guitar solos, all of that was taken out. Then punk came along, right? Ramones, The Clash, and so on. And disco, right? They were also exceptional musicians, but with a different vibe, a different approach, you know? Brazilian rock largely emerged because those things were missing, yes.
Without great musicians...
Right? No, great musicians, but...
Damn, not all of them, right?
No, Freya, for example, man, excellent, outstanding guitarist. He, for example, Barão Vermelho, wasn't he more influenced by the Rolling Stones and all, but they didn't really have that solo guitar thing, but Traja Rigor, for example, too.
Yeah, was the guitar good?
Sensational guitarists, right? From Bartolini and the others who replaced him, they were always technical and spectacular guitarists. Heavy metal has always mattered, especially the solos.
Do you accept or not accept the title of greatest guitarist in Brazil? I accept.
With a lot of humility and gratitude. Whoever thinks I am, I thank them.
And a lot of people think so. Have you heard that?
Yes, of course. Yeah, and I'm really grateful because it shows that what I do has an identity, right? In art, there's a signature, right? That it's going to reach that person, that listener, in a unique way, right? So you can put them in different places and try to compare because for me, it's really hard to compare musicians, right? I have my idols, obviously.
That's what I was going to ask you. I wanted to ask you, if you don't mind, to list for me the 5 greatest guitarists in history.
Wow.
You can't include yourself.
Damn, man.
Others might even include you, but would you include yourself?
It's not hard, man, because damn.
Yeah, I know it's hard, but let's try, right? So, like,
For me, the revolutionaries, Tony Iommi, Jimmy Page, Richie Blackmore, they're the guitarists who, Brian May, Jimi Hendrix,
B.B. King,
B.B. King, Stevie Ray Vaughan,
Eric Clapton,
Eric Clapton. Hey man, it's the metal guitarists, James Hetfield, Kirk Hammett, right? Dave Mustaine, Scott Ian. These guys here, man, Slayer, Judas Priest, KK Downing, right? Glenn Tipton, Randy Rhoads. The great Randy Rhoads, guitarist, the first guitarist for Ozzy Osbourne, right? And man, Edward Van Halen, a revolutionary like Jimi Hendrix.
Does any Brazilian belong on that list?
Yes, Sergio Diaz himself, Edgar Scandura, Kiko Loureiro, right? Rafael Bittencourt. And the metal guys too, damn. Moises from Christian can really play. He has his spectacular technique, very virtuosic, right? Who plays within his own world a fantastic guitar. And man, the guitarist, right?
We're moving into another area, right? Before that, you mentioned about 20 names. Give me 5. Make your ranking. Go ahead. Okay.
I'll put number 5. Number 5, Steve Ray Vaughan. 4, number 4, James Hetfield.
3.
3. Edward, no, I'll put Randy Rhoads, Vaughn Harlan, and Tony Iommi. Go.
Vaughn Harlan 2, Tony Iommi number 1.
This list is unfair, but damn it, whatever. You have to pick 5?
Do you think you deserve to be on that list?
Man, again, man.
Maybe. I know you're not arrogant, you're modest, but I'm still getting to know you.
But also,
Like,
with several people, I'll be in someone's top 5, And for me, that's already more than enough, man, because I'm making a difference in someone's life, right? In some way, just like these guitarists made a difference in mine, right? So damn, yeah, it's really hard for you to measure that. All these contests or, these things that magazines promote, the best drummer, the best guitarist, the best bassist, the best whatever, really. Like there are a lot.
we know that's a lot.
We know. But it's cool because of the popularity, right? Your name is out there, people know you and remember you. At the moment.
You've already made it onto a lot of lists.
Yes, I've already won several awards, that's right, and it's really good. It's nice to have that recognition, no doubt. But damn, it's not something I go after, right? Art is somewhere else, right? Art isn't about getting awards, The Grammy, the Oscar, all these things are always really controversial, right?
Been to the Grammy before? No.
I have 2 Grammy nominations for my solo work, man. 2 for De La Tierra and another for a solo album.
And not for Sepultura?
Not for Sepultura. Not even at the Latin Grammy, since we sing in English. And the American Grammy is much harder, right?
I felt like listening to you play.
Yikes.
I have a proposal for you, but it's not great.
So I'll eat a little bit first.
When you arrived, you saw that I have an old guitar over there. It used to be pretty good. It's a Canadian student guitar, but it's a bit broken now.
I picked it up there and noticed. Did you play it? Guitars left in the corner are always out of tune, especially that string.
It's waiting for Andre. I guess he needs to come over and tune it.
Poor thing.
Do you want to make some noise? Are you up for showing me something?
Let's go. Ed?
Take off your shoes, making it harder, right? Sit if you want.
For those who can't smell it, there's a lot of incense here. St. George's sword. There's everything here. Is it this one? Yeah, give me that one.
For you to play, you have to see how you're going to manage.
Sepultura has a song called Guardians of Earth from their latest album, right? I actually sat down with a specific idea in mind to make a song where I could use the acoustic guitar as a more integral part of the music. I like the deeper sound of the acoustic guitar's lower strings, you know?
Do you change the tuning of the E string?
That's right. Jimmy Page used to do that a lot, right? Put it here. I tune it down to D. Somewhere the D is here.
Then you end up with two identical notes.
Okay, now I have this here. This is very Egberto Gismonti, right? Classical guitar also has a lot to do with the bass string. And on guitar, many people use it for power chords, right? Aussie, right? So Zekward uses that a lot. So yeah, I sat down and started working on some power chords, right? Which is like really used in heavy metal, just this kind of chord shape. It's not even really a chord because it only has two notes, but we call it a power chord.
You're doubling the note on the 6th and 4th strings.
Yeah, so just messing around and everything, I started to, and I made this riff, right? Right? This thing kind of has a classical feel to it, right? It does, for sure. What's this song? Guardians of Earth. And man, this one, it goes like the drums come in and everything. There's a choral part and all that gets the song ready to really kick in, right? With guitar distortion and Derek's aggressive vocals. But this here
is from what period? It's current?
This is from 2020 when the album was about to come out. It came out in February and we were about to go on tour when the world shut down, right? When the pandemic happened, we only got to tour with this album in 2022.
When did you start bringing classical music into metal?
Always, always, always. I love classical music. I remember with my grandfather's records as a kid, man, grabbing a pen and pretending I was a conductor, like in front of the speaker, right? The speakers. And I always really liked Mozart, Beethoven, those more well-known composers, you know? Because we had that at home.
So, and then did you start looking for others? Man,
I took guitar lessons because I wanted to play classical guitar. To me, classical guitar is the most spectacular thing.
Who first came to mind when you thought of classical?
Man, Segovia. Guitar by Sebastian Bach, Segovia, yeah. There's one by... Anyway, wonderful. Man, Bach is spectacular. This one is a transcription from the cello suite. This is the prelude, right?
Bach didn't write it for guitar.
No, but he wrote it for the lute, right? Which is the distant relative of the classical guitar.
Which the Arabs call the lute.
Lute, exactly. So there are transcriptions from the lute, the violin, the cello, Bach's music for classical guitar. And there are, wow, some amazing pieces, and I still study them to this day, man. It's an endless world, right? Have you ever put...
From Villa-Lobos. Yeah, you've already played Juan Pernambuco, right? Have you already played... Sounds of Chimes? Do you also compose this kind of music or not?
Yes, I do. I have some compositions. Actually, I need to take them out of my drawers over there.
Will you make a guitar-only album?
I'm getting ready for that. My intention is to do something like playing the pieces I like by other composers, including some of my own as well. It's a post-Sepultura project that I want to dedicate myself to a bit more.
Is there any Sepultura song where we can recognize Coro in it?
Choro, no, but there is a Sertaneo song, yes. Really? Which one? Kiowas, right? That's it. That's more influenced by Led Zeppelin, right? That kind of British vibe. Then it shifts to something more Brazilian that comes in on the kind of like a berimbau, right? So there's this solo that's, country style. Kind of like that.
Right, but it's played really in tune and with a guitar?
Exactly. Yeah, we originally recorded it with, I recorded it with a 12-string guitar that kind of sounded like a viola capira.
But we put overdrive on it.
No, the original recording is clean like that.
What's the song?
Kaiwa. From KUZD, it was recorded in the ruins of a castle in Wales, man. Damn, it was spectacular. If you listen closely, you can even hear the seagulls and everything.
But did the ruins have the acoustics to record?
Yeah, damn right it did. The walls were there, but there was no roof, nothing. But man, the acoustics were spectacular. That's why we chose that room to do this, right?
What other Brazilian style can we see within Sepultura? Another Brazilian style? And another one of your songs?
What is another Brazilian style?
I don't know. Have you ever put samba into a Sepultura song?
Some rhythms kind of, I think kind of maracá too. Chico Science influenced Sepultura a lot at one point too.
Did you start when he was still alive?
Yes, we met him.
He died in 96, right?
Yeah, we met him at the MTV party. We even played together and everything. And Nação Zumbi stayed friends with us to this day, right? They're an amazing band. They also influenced us a lot. They influenced Raimundos, right? There was a time when there was, how do you say it? A search, right? More national, like making rock with a more national vibe,
Where do Nação Zumbi, Chico Science, and Sepultura fit into that?
There's a song called Attitude, right, from the Roots album that also has a lot of that vibe, which is kind of like a berimbau thing, but also with that northeastern touch, It's kind of really cool, kind of laid back,
And on Roots, were you able to include indigenous sounds?
Yes, we made a song together with the Chavante tribe, built around a harmony from a solo piece I wrote called Jasco. We shared that harmony with the tribe and created it together, right? Yeah.
There's another element there.
Yeah, it's a very Brazilian touch, but don't you think it's a bit
strange, that extra element, isn't it? Yes, it's not very...
They had never seen an acoustic guitar before. In fact, Max left his guitar there, which we used for the recording.
Which one was it? The Village?
Damn, what's it called? It's from Chavantes in Mato Grosso.
Okay.
Wow, I knew the name. Now it's gone. But man, everything was really well done. Like, in the sense that there was a translator who explained everything that was happening. We recorded under a huge tree, like that.
You guys recorded the album under a tree? A song, but under a tree?
Under a tree in the village with the Chavantes. The producer brought it. It was Ross Robinson, right? He brought a car battery, right? To power the soundboard to record so it wouldn't make noise because we couldn't plug in amps or use a generator. So we spread out microphones like this. We stayed in a circle. The tribe made a circle and we stayed in the middle, right under the tree. And that's where we recorded Itzari, right?
And did they sing with you?
Yes. Stomping their feet on the ground with the rattle, clapping their hands and singing too.
Is she the one who can sing and play?
Damn, no, I don't know. But I don't know. Then you hear the foot hitting the floor, It was amazing, man. A spectacular experience, man.
What's your favorite song? Do you have one?
Man, that's hard to say, huh? I just like music.
If I have to choose one, I'll pick one today. It's just that I'm at this moment.
I really like one song, you know, there are so many songs.
But I wanted one you could sing and play.
There's one by Neil Young that I love, which is Harvest Moon, right, man? I'm just talking nonsense. No, I don't sing mine, man. I sing Harvest Moon too. Mine I scream, man.
No, I already want to hear you screaming.
Man, I don't know. I have a song usually.
You're going to like the latest one, aren't you?
Yeah, that Guardians of War 1 has a song I really like, mainly because of the acoustic guitar, right?
Do you sing and play?
No.
Is there one you can sing and play?
No, not me. I'm not a singer.
But you do some stuff there.
No, I just shout a bit. I yell sometimes, but this isn't the right moment. It would be weird to be shouting with the guitar. Wouldn't it sound bad? Yeah, because, I mean, I don't even know what song Yeah, I sing very little.
So there's no such thing as a cappella heavy metal?
No, it exists for those who know how to sing. Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden does that often, right? But my voice isn't really my strength, right?
I interviewed him once. Bruce Dickinson, when he was in Rio, right? I joined him at the flight simulator. He enjoys flying.
Awesome. Sensational. It was really cool. He's a genius.
Andre, we talked today about euthanasia, about death, about talking about the moment of death. After all that happened, did you start thinking about the moment of your death?
I think about death every day. Even before I already did. I used to be a bit afraid of flying, you know?
Do you want to leave mine there? Is that okay?
I was a little afraid. I used to be a little afraid of flying when we started traveling and all, you know, that whole fear thing, you know? And man, it's funny because I saw a picture of John Lennon with Yoko Ono and Paul McCartney and Linda McCartney sitting on the plane, you know, in the airplane seats. And I thought, man, the coolest, most famous band in the world. They travel all over the world. They're there alive, relaxed, you know, traveling by plane. I said, that took away my fear, you know, really crazy. But man, it's not about the plane. It could be anything, right? You're alive. Anything can happen. And I think death is something that walks with us because you're always thinking about your safety, always thinking about not crashing or not falling or not breaking anything. And that's the thing, right? Death is always there. Like, I'm not going to do something that will put me at risk. Or, I don't know, even when you're going to skydive or do bungee jumping or climb a tower.
Do you do those things?
I've done all of that. I love it. So maybe this fear of death wouldn't let me do these things, you know? So damn, so...
Aren't you afraid when you think about death?
No, not at all. Yeah, I think it's part of it, and it is a factor that should be considered at all times, every day. Because she is the greatest teacher. Death is the greatest teacher when it comes to all of this that happens, right? Because everything comes to an end. George Harrison already said, all things must pass. Right? And everything really does pass. So live in the moment, live in the present.
That's my saying on WhatsApp. That's it. All things must pass.
All things must pass. That song is wonderful, right? The message is that brightness doesn't last forever. There you go. That's it.
It's beautiful, right? The sunrise doesn't last forever. It's wonderful. The cloud won't last forever either. And
man, it also has that Hindu vibe, right? That influence too, right? Of seeing the world in a different way. That whole spiritual and material thing, right?
Was Harrison the best Beatle?
Man, that always changes, right? For those who like the Beatles...
For me, it was.
Well, I'm kind of in a John Lennon phase right now. John Lennon and Yoko Ono, man. I really enjoy what Yoko does.
I like the art, too. Have you been listening to dodecaphonic music?
Not necessarily the music, but the music in connection with what she does in art, you know? That kind of surreal thing, kind of totally intriguing, you know?
That's what made Lennon fall in love, right? He fell in love with her art.
Exactly. She's a person, like a spectacular artist, man. And not for nothing, she was there, you know? Together. That documentary, Get Back, is something spectacular, man. It shows the Beatles were like any other band. With their right, flaws, their egos, and their childishness even, right? That you see in everyday things. And their genius in making things happen despite adversity, right? That made us much stronger, man. And even though it was the end of that cycle, right? You see how creative they were and how they could really make something out of nothing, doing things like that. Unbelievable.
They didn't have time to reconcile to do a show together, but you do. Would you like to do a show with Max and Igor Cavalera? No.
The idea is that for Sepultura's last show, which will be next year, we'll do a big show here in Sao Paulo and invite Max and Igor, right? We have this plan, not just with them, but also Eloy Casagrande, Jairo, Giando Olabella, musicians who are part of the band's history, to make it a celebration, right?
Did you already talk to Max about this?
We have contact through managers. I've been talking in the press, talking.
Don't you talk to him? No.
No.
Since the separation?
Since the separation. No, we met once or twice, but we don't have like a friendly relationship, a friendship.
Don't you want to reconnect?
Just to reconnect for the sake of it, no. I think things have to happen naturally, right? Not force anything. But I think if we got on stage, did a jam session for the fans, for our families, and for ourselves, right? I think it would be such a healthy thing, so incredible, right? For this band's spectacular history. And man, I'm not interested in fighting, in seeing who's right or who's wrong. We're never going to reach a conclusion, and that conclusion doesn't exist. Everyone has their own point of view about what happened, right? About the things that happened, the fights, and the right and wrong things we did. And let's get on stage and play what we love, right? We did so many great things together, right? We'll always have that. It's like a child of separated parents.
You have several children together?
Yeah, exactly. And we have that forever, right? Yeah, so I hope we can make this happen, like I said, for the fans. And that's it.
For the fans or for you?
Also for us, obviously. For everyone, right? It's not something exclusive.
No, I mean like this. It's your desire.
No, it's not a desire. Desire is to celebrate the end. It's not to play again with Max and Igor. It's to celebrate the end for the fans. For us too. For us to have this experience one more time of playing together. In this context.
And why does this time that you guys are getting back together have to be the end of Sepultura?
Because we chose it.
You want Sepultura to end?
Yes. That's where we are. Everything we've talked about. Euthanasia, assisted death, having a choice, man. Why can't we stop at our peak? We're at our peak, the best moment of our career, both on stage and off. Our problem has always been off stage, the off-stage stuff. Confusion, disorganization, a lot of emotion, a lot of family. Today, we have a professional structure that works. It works regardless of whether I'm in a bad mood, if Paulo's in a good mood, etc. Things work in a professional, objective way, right? And we're making our dreams come true. One of them is finishing the way we're finishing. With a conscious choice, a choice we've discussed, a choice we've been planning for 3 years now. And it's the best thing that's happening to us. We're doing a spectacular tour, the biggest tour we've ever done in Europe in our history. We did Lollapalooza. We went to Iceland for the first time. We're going to do a North American tour next year. All the big festivals in Europe, culminating with the last show here in Brazil, maybe October, around that time. Next year. And finish well, finish peacefully. No fights, no outside factors ending this band. I think consciously closing a chapter is a privilege. Why not, right? I'm 57 years old. I feel good physically and mentally. To take risks and try different things in art, in music, to work with different people. And anyway, to experience other things. It's been 42 years with the band Sepultura, man, right? 42 years. And man, I never stopped. Since 87, I never stopped. I never stopped with Sepultura. I never dropped the ball. Regardless of the problems we had, the changes inside and outside the band, technological ones, Napster, Spotify, vinyl, CD, we're here, man.
Stronger than ever.
Artificial intelligence, we're here, you know? And that's it. It's a spectacular story. Unique, wonderful. And I have deep respect for everything that happened. And let's move forward. Let's do other things, you know? I think creativity, the worst thing that can happen is for you to be in your comfort zone. You already know how to make another album, do the same circuit, see the same people and all that, you know? It seems like it's not a routine, but it's a routine that takes 3 years, but it's still a routine. And you know about this cycle.
It's 3 years.
At least 3 years since we go everywhere. And it takes a while, right?
The album will be followed by a 3-year tour. Exactly.
That's the least.
So this is the last one.
This is going to be the last one. And it's from the painting, right? Painting, spectacular record. Maybe one of the best in our history. And also going out on top with an album that we're super happy with, an album that really represents what Sepultura is today.
So this show in October 2026 will be the end of Sepultura's story.
The end of Sepultura on stage and working together as a band like that. But Sepultura doesn't end, right? Did Motorhead end? Did Led Zeppelin end? Did Ramones end? Did Beethoven end? No. The person ends, but the art remains. It lives in each person's interpretation, in the freedom to take our music to different formats and situations where it keeps that alive, right? As long as there's someone playing and someone listening, it will be alive forever, right? From the moment you put art out there, it's no longer yours, right? In the sense that it's there. Each person can absorb it in whatever way they want, right?
Andre, I forgot.
Thanks, man.
Thank you very much, man. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the invitation and congratulations on the format. It's really nice to exchange ideas. It is. In an environment where you feel like you're not inside a studio, right?
That's your idea.
And that's it, man. Yeah, let's move on.
Thank you for telling your story, for sharing all of this. Thanks, bye.
Thank you, man.
So, man, thank you very much.
Come with Kieta. Thanks, man.
Thanks.
All the best.
Thank you. For you, I need to say this, right? No, always. You can say it. Success in life and heart.